Wow, it's great. My name's Gary Fowler. It's great to be here. I'm actually broadcasting from Key West, Florida today. So it's great. My name is Gary Fowler. I am the CEO, co founder, and president of GSD Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio, helping companies go global using Silicon Valley as a port. I've done 17 companies, 2 unicorns, and we love AI and quantum computing. So it is with great ado that I introduce my friend, Vandana Tolani. Vandana is a venture capitalist, does global investments around the world, currently located in India, but has done everything from family offices to venture capital and an all around good person. So with that, Vandana. Hi, Vandana.
Yeah, hi Gary. So first of all, thank you for having me on the show. And it's really awesome and exciting to be with you on the same show where you are moderating. And really excited for this. Thank you for the
Yeah,
wonderful introduction.
it's great to have you, Vandana. We spent a bit of time together. We've never seen each other in person, but we spent a bit of time with each other on different
Yeah.
shows. So great to have you. So tell me a little bit about what's your journey like. So, how did you get started?
Yeah, while I was in India, uh, way before my marriage, I had started working for an investment banking firm. From there, I picked up the investment banking, area of work. When I moved to Jakarta, uh, I got into my own family office, which was owned by my father-in-law, and we started doing investments heavily. Then I got deeper into it. Then I went to Singapore. I traveled all around the world. Came back to India 6 years back. Did a lot of investments. Just before COVID, I stopped doing investments. Then I changed to advisory. Started connecting with people globally and closed about 4 deals during the lockdown, uh, just online like this.
Wow,
So,
that's great, Vandana. You made
yeah,
great progress.
yes. And this month I'm going to close 2 more deals. So it's just happening. I'm connected globally. We are sector agnostic. And we do $1 million to $25 million. So that's all about myself.
Well, that's great. So, tell me a little bit, how sometimes startups get into funding rounds and they fail. What happens?
Yeah.
Besides they don't
So
get the money. Besides they don't get the money. What exactly? What do they do when that happens?
there are two things that happens to a founder. Either they get overconfident or they get too underconfident. That is one thing that makes them fail. The second thing is they do not focus on investing on the right kind of pitch deck. Having it done from a professional, they feel that they should not invest on getting a pitch deck done. They don't have the right complementary team, and they have the vision, but the vision is more to burn the money than to multiply it. So sometimes that is where they lack, and also sometimes they throw valuations which doesn't make sense, and
Hmm.
it's not realistic. And when we try to explain them that you need to have a realistic valuation, that's where they fail, and they box themselves up by telling the valuation to the investor way before time.
Hmm.
So in that case scenario, what happens is that they don't leave any room for negotiations. So that's another thing where they fail. So I think that's
Well,
these are
that's
the
about
few reasons.
life, Donna. That's like negotiations 101. You got to have
Yeah,
some room. It has to be a win-win. Everybody's got to win, right?
yeah,
These are like keep it simple, stupid rules of business, right? The other
yeah.
thing is, overly irrational exuberance. One of the economists from the U.S. said, I mean, you got
Hmm.
to be careful. You can't. I had one time, I had this scientist, Russian scientist, had incredible
Hmm.
technology. He did
Hmm.
this math and he said, Well, I have incredible battery technology, and it's a $90 billion market, and I'm going to
Yeah.
have 90% of the market worldwide. So, let's see. My company must be valued at $80 billion. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's not how you do it. Well,
Yeah.
and then not only that, but I'm willing to raise money, and this is initial funding. I want to raise $10 million, and I'm going to give less than 1% of the company up. And I'm like, this is not how it works.
Hmm.
You're not going to go from this rational exuberance will not work with investors because they are not going to take all the risk on something that may work or not. This is, so setting the right stage, you're 100% right. So, how do they determine how much? So, startups coming in to raise money, how do they know how much to raise? How do you come up with and say it's 3 million, it's 5 million, it's 10 million? How do they know?
So generally, if a founder already knows how much they have to raise, we ask them what is their ask all about. Like, I mean, have they divided the ask? How did they come up with those figures? Then generally we do an exercise with them. We explain them that, look, your revenue is this much, or you don't have revenue, or maybe you should just ask for this much. This is a normal figure. So if they ask us, yeah, of course they get the right guidance. But if they just come up with any figure on their own, we try to tell them, look, there was one founder from an edutech company that had come to me a few months back at zero revenue. He was asking for 3 million, and I told him, look, you're going to have a backfall. Don't do this. I'm going to tell you what you're going to ask for, accomplish that first, and then we're going to ask for more. But you need to have some realistic figures here. So basically, he didn't listen to me, and he kept on insisting and insisting. So to give him the feel, I said, okay, we're going to start the process. So we started the process, and he got several no's. And then he started crying, like he said, oh God, what did I do? Why am I not getting funded? I said, look, you didn't listen to me. And I told you clearly, you have to do this. So
You got
I
to
think,
listen to Vandana. The story is you got to listen to Vandana. She's got a lot of knowledge about venture. Vandana's
yeah.
got the answers. Go ahead, Vandana. You're right, though, because that's the thing is they do get really bullheaded, and it's about setting realistic objectives, realistic goals.
And some founders, they think they know better than the advisor. Then why have you hired us if you don't want to understand what you're. So I think these things make them have a fallback, and having also so if they come with a realistic figure, that we help them decide. And some founders do come with a very realistic figure,
Mm-hmm.
and they say, please tell me if I'm asking too much, and some don't. So usually we check their revenues, usually we check at what stage they are, usually we check what kind of technology they have developed, who's the founder, what is the team. So we go through all these processes, and we also see how humble the founder is. Humble doesn't mean submissive. Humble means that being grounded, being able to pivot, being able to understand, being able to being flexible to change things. So I think and just being grounded. If you've reached a stage where of success, but then if you still remain grounded, I think that's what takes you forward. That means you're centered in your mind.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, having a billionaire partner, I can tell you
Yeah.
grounding is important. I'll never forget when we went down. So we're raising $7 million. And I had
Yeah.
to go out and do presentations. He is my a partner and acted as the CTO of the company. But we had to do customer discovery. Now imagine taking a billionaire and walking down the streets of Palo Alto, California, and going up to people and doing presentations. No.
Right. Right.
But we did it. We did it together, and it was amazing because the knowledge we got helped us pivot the company and create a successful company. So pivoting is important. Humble is important. Flexibility, and also having a positive attitude. If you believe the class is half full, not half empty, really helps out a lot because you can start to think positively. But when you say, oh, I don't know, maybe I can raise, I'm not going to invest. I don't know about you, Vandana, but somebody says, I don't know, maybe we can do that next year. I hope. I'm like, going, there's no way. I wouldn't take money
Yeah.
out of my pocket and invest it for something that's about hope. It's either you believe that you can get the job done or not.
Exactly. And giving you another example, a few days back, I had gone to meet a really big fund in Gurgaon, and they had a medical company which they wanted me to take it to my investors. So I told them, look, this is what you need to change. You don't have a video pitch, it won't work. So they were, being a fund, they already knew so much about it more than me, but they were humble enough to accept my, what I was saying, and they said, "Look, we'll do the way you want it." So I think that really works. That gives you the space to also get the deal done in a better manner. So I think, it keeps you grounded if you are humble. It keeps you centered in the mind. And there are founders that have already done lot more than us also, but they understand that, okay, she's saying something right here, so we need to get things going.
Yeah,
So I think that,
it's always good to have other opinions, right?
right. And so like me, I also sometimes I talk a lot with my teenager kids, I talk a lot with youngsters, and I do accept whatever ideas they give, because I feel like, okay, it makes sense what they are saying. So I think that's really important here.
And what about, I had this one startup and
Hmm.
they raised money, and literally the startup went out and brought a new car, a
Oh,
company car, right? So they
okay.
bought this company car, leased a company car, and they were
Hmm.
from another jurisdiction, another country. But
Hmm.
I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, I was like, I couldn't believe they went out and did this car situation. So, or office furniture, spend a lot of money. How do you
Yeah.
tell startups to be able to control your costs so you can grow your company? I mean, because it's not inherent. I mean, a lot of these companies have never, startup founders have never done a company before. They don't know how to run a company. It's a whole, entirely different mindset than, trying to build a software tool. So, how do you tell them how to control your costs and how to build a financial model that works?
Right. So we also had some founders that took the money and spent on treating some illness and did all kinds of funny things. So we came up with
Wait, treating illness?
treating illness. Took the money and they went to treat illnesses. They burnt the money there. So
Well, at
then
least it didn't. At least Vandana. At least they didn't get plastic surgery.
no, they treated cancer.
Well, that's a different story. But that's kind of
Yeah.
odd, right? For investors' money that use it to treat cancer,
Hmm.
right?
Right. It's not acceptable because we are doing business here. So in the beginning, we ask them, what is the usage of funds? So when they divide that usage into columns, there is in the term sheet, we do put a, clause kind of a thing that for some expenditures, they have to ask the investor before doing that expenditure, even if it is salaries, even if it is something really genuine. So they cannot really spend the investors money and blow it up. So I think there we took control over there by putting that extra clause.
And what did you do, Vandana, when you found out they spent money on this stuff? What did you do? I'm just curious. It's really interesting for me.
So we couldn't, of course, we couldn't do much here because, we discussed among us and all. And then the investor was really upset. Look, the money got burnt here and there. And then we said, okay, let's give it time. We called them, we had a talk with them. And then we came up with certain amicable terms so that he doesn't fall into a legal soup, etc. And then we got it sorted it out. But
No,
it's
that's great.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's amazing that that education needs to be imparted. Sometimes they just don't know. I mean, they think just getting funded is something it's not a business purpose. It's just to blow it up, pay salaries, play your loan, or maybe treat a sickness. And like you said, somebody bought a car. So I think, if you have a legal mandate, you can actually call them and say, look, if you do this, then this is going to happen. This is going to happen. So let's just decide what you want to do
I
next.
mean, you got to set expectations up, right? These are the kind of
Yeah, yeah,
the use of funds. This and the idea of having direct use of funds, and then they have to have permission, board approval to do anything beyond that's really important and a good thing to do. Now, I agree
yeah,
with you 100%. But again, you're dealing with folks that haven't dealt with those kind of situations, and based on the cancer deal, what they should have done, it would have been acceptable for them to buy health insurance for the employees. You would have bought
yeah.
off on that, right? And that wouldn't have been a problem. So it's just a matter of how you do it, right? You buy health insurance is acceptable. Uh, now it sounds interesting. So tell me, what happens when a funding round is successful? So let's say somebody's going out to raise $4 million. What's the next step?
So basically, when the funding round is successful, they already got the money in their account. Then starts the actual work. That is, how is the founder going to use that money? Where is it going to be spent? Who is going to take control? So usually the investor takes control of the money, and where exactly it's going to be spent, how it's going to be multiplied. So all those strategies are developed across the money, and how do we actually make use of it wisely, and it should be used for growing the company. That's it. The purpose should be that. So that all is structured in a well manner fashion, and then usually that's what happens, and then we start the second round, third round, depending on the kind of investments they have. So I think this is what we do. We don't let them burn the money, and then of course me as an advisor gets paid also. So from the success that comes, so we become very happy.
Yeah, no, I see you smiling already. So, what about cultural differences? You were in Singapore. You've been around. What kind of cultural difference do you see? Let's say somebody from India to Singapore. What differences are there?
See, when I was in Jakarta, Gary, it is a Muslim dominated place. So women don't have lots of opportunities to speak up. Then, it is dominated by the military sometimes, and the government acts really funny there. So then going to Singapore, it is more free. In fact, some holding companies from India are created there. The culture is free minded. Everybody can move freely, speak freely, work freely. So it's totally a developed place. So naturally, there's a lot of difference when one comes back to India. But it's not really that bad in India. We just have to do our work in the right manner, find the right kind of partners, right kind of startups. There are many, many highly educated VCs here, highly educated investors here who come with, give a lot of backing, lot of support. I have met the most wonderful people out here. It's just that me as a woman, I cannot go for a meeting after 8 o'clock at night. It's not safe. So that
It's not
kind of
in India. It's not safe to go for a meeting.
alone as a woman at
Hmm.
night. So that I don't do. I've limited myself for that kind of a thing. Typically I would be home latest by 9:30. Even I tell my daughter that you need to be home on time. So that kind only that there is I feel I wish I could just go for a meeting at 9 o'clock and finish this work.
Mhm.
So that kind of feeling comes in. Otherwise, everything is normal. Of course, the taxes issues, like I mentioned, that we can create holding companies in Singapore. Singapore is more free that way. All those legal issues are there. Then, you know. There are a lot of a few political issues that we have, but those are not really big. If you see that a lot of vaccinations have gone to abroad from India, there's a lot of progress that has happened as well in terms of country progress. In terms of only me, I feel a little bit slow when I can't do things, moving around, especially.
Mhm.
And I have to think twice before I go for a meeting. Where am I going? Whom am I meeting? Is it safe to go? So the other day, like, there was Uber strike and I got stuck up badly. And I didn't know like how to reach back home, but finally I managed. So I think, those kind of issues are only there. Otherwise, for work environment, everything is fine. It's just that we have few women decision makers here. That needs to change. Other than that, I think in terms of having the right kind of knowledge, having the right kind of people over here with talent, everything is there. All the resources are there. And there are a lot many startups here. There's a lot many investors here. I mean, I didn't face any trouble. In fact, like I said, in 2020 I closed 4 deals.
Well, that's what counts. And Vandana, you're online so much. You're the digital transformation. You can be
Yeah,
anywhere. Here we are. I'm in Florida right now, and you're in
yeah,
India. You can be anywhere at any time. It's incredible opportunity. And the genius of the minds in India. The graduates of IIT and all the schools. It's
yeah,
incredible the kind of things that they can create and the
yeah,
opportunities they have. It's a matter of it's like having a Ferrari in a garage.
yeah,
You got to take the Ferrari out of the garage and drive it and show it and race it. And so the key is getting them out of the garage. So it's great that it's great that we're working together on some things to get those Ferraris out. I love it. In closing, so can you summarize and say, what do you see over the next year? What's going to happen, and what if you could say one thing to a startup? What's important for them today, and then how do they reach you?
yeah. Thank you, Gary, for this awesome event, first of all. So the first thing is that, you know, uh, I see a lot many fintech, agri-tech, edutech, AI, blockchains coming up in the coming year, and a lot more deals closing, a lot more interaction happening globally. I see a lot of advancement in technology, smart cities, IoT, 5G, etc., which is coming up. And if I have to give a message to founders over here, my message would be that, read the book Power of the Subconscious Mind, stay positive, stay happy, and never ever give up. Whatever happens, be courageous, be brave, take out all the fear from your heart. The moment you take out the fear from your heart, you can actually reach the skies. So that's my message. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm there on LinkedIn. My website is www.convanto.com, which stands for Consultant Vandana Tolani. And, feel free to reach out to me.
Oh, I wonder what Convanto. I figured it out. Well, I love that. That's fantastic. I was wondering. I thought this is really. It sounds like a agri-tech company, but no, that's fantastic, Vandana. So thank you for so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I appreciate it, and stay tuned, everybody, for part 2 of GSD Presents. We'll be back in just a minute.
Thank you.
Hey, Jen, how are you doing today? It's great to see you.
Hey, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, super. I got a question for you. So, I mean, you've been around Washington, Harvard, Seoul National University. Was it University of Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania you went to in 2002?
Pennsylvania.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say because I don't know why I wrote down Pittsburgh, but I remembered because I've been to 38th and Walnut Street a few times myself. I did a project down there. So interesting. So how do you go? I mean, you've been around. How do you've worked with the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Singapore, T. Rowe Price. I mean, okay, tell me about the journey. So where were you born? Were you born in the U.S.? Were you born in Korea? Where were you born?
I was born in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
With my father, I grew up in 7 countries in Latin America, Middle East, Europe, obviously Asia. I think my experience in a lot of these countries and having seen how the economic activities have evolved, as well as capital formation, and going through several crises also, and experiencing through that, piqued my interest in how investing and financing works, which led me to get into the IFC to look at venture investments and debt investments in these countries. And then I went all the way up the capital structure to pre-IPO and listed companies. And then I realized it was more interesting upstream. So I came down to the venture stage now. But it's an exciting time because I think what we're seeing right now is quite unprecedented in that the opportunity for capital and talent is getting globalized right now. And that's why you're seeing this explosion of new startups everywhere.
No, I agree with you. The digital transformation has really helped to level the playing field. As we say, intellectual capacity is evenly spread, but opportunities aren't. Today my partner's in Nigeria. If you would ask me a year and a half ago if we'd have that much of a focus in Africa, I'd probably say no. But I mean, it's really global. And I don't know about you, but the efficiency and effectiveness of being able to use Zoom and StreamYard and these technologies. I remember, Jen, 5 years ago when I was an early Zoom user, I had one of the VCs that invest emergence in Zoom said, you got to try this up. Eric's a genius. And I said, okay. And so my partner and I, David, tried it. And I would send out the links and my friends would say, why do I want that? I've got Skype. Why would I want to use Zoom? I said, because this is really cool stuff. This is really good stuff. And look at it today. I mean, I checked last time I wrote him on LinkedIn. He was worth about $20 billion. I'm going like, that's a lot of money. So
already quite prescient at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. But you see these stories, doing 17 companies in Silicon Valley. I know Click Software, we got started with that, I was on the original team. I mean, it was a little tiny company that came out of Haifa, Israel, that we brought to Silicon Valley. And I mean, to see a company get sold for over $1 billion to Salesforce later, it's amazing, really. When you sit down and you're saying, I think we should call it Click Software. I like it. Click and software, they go together. And then all of a sudden, it's a major deal. It's incredible. So the power, what about, what's the difference? So going from, you've seen a lot of cultures. And I know living in Russia myself for a long time, there's a lot of cultural differences. And in Russia, it's kind of like, I call it the Dostoevsky mentality. Oh, I don't know. Maybe, I hope. I don't know what it's like in Korea today, but you've traveled around. Do you see that? Is it just me? It's like I don't know if it's kind of a combination of humble and yet at the same time kind of this negative stuff out there. Do you see it? Is it the same for you?
Yeah, definitely. There's a huge difference between cultures, and one of the reasons that, aside from the infrastructure and ecosystem that Silicon Valley does well, is because of willingness to take risk and appreciating from failure and learning from that. In a lot of other countries, failure is even in Europe, failure is not perceived well, right? It's not a learning experience. And I think I also lived in Russia, and I know.
Oh, Jin, I didn't know.
I spent a year and a half there. one of the reasons you see a lot of engineers come out there, it's just because they value domain expertise, whereas in some other cultures like the US, it's commercialization, selling, right? You see a very different culture in Far East also between Japan versus China, for example. Japan is very, very, I'm out of my league here, but I'm generalizing, but I have to do this because you're seeing it manifest. It's similar in Korea. With the older generation especially, there is an aversion to risk. I think what you've seen in China is somehow with the generational shift from socialism, communism to capitalism, and you've seen the younger generation come in, they just forgot about that, taking that risk aversion, and they just ran with it. And that entrepreneurial spirit is ingrained more in the younger generation right now in China versus the other countries around. And that's where you're seeing a lot of these engine.
Well, I know, I started the first accelerator in Russia with my partner, Lawrence Wright. And I remember when we started it, we talked about Silicon Valley. We had like 3 people in our entrepreneurs club. I remember the biggest one that we had, the biggest meeting, I had over 2,500 folks attend. I filled up the auditorium, and in the back, and of course, Guy Kawasaki, a friend, was there, so that didn't hurt. But they went from this kind of negative kind of a feel to this is cool stuff. We would take them out to Silicon Valley for 2 weeks as part of the program, and they loved it. And then it started to go, physically viral. People wanted to go because they wanted that open feeling. And of course, the weather's not bad. Some people forget weather does have an impact on
Sure.
startup. But it was really interesting. And then I would talk about this positive stuff, passion, optimism, visualization, the glass is half full, not half empty. And as they started to do that, you could see the shift, that in the younger generation, under 40, under 30, the 20-year-olds, they shifted. And it's really interesting when I go back now, I still, spend a bit of time over there.
There is, and you bring up a good point, Gary, because in the education system, and I think Russia is also very similar to Asia, you're never good enough. You're doing this wrong. You're doing this wrong.
No matter what you do, you're never good enough.
Whereas I think in the US, it swung the fire the other way. Everyone gets a trophy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. Oh, I got to remember that. Everybody gets a trophy. That's right. Everybody gets a trophy. Well, I took courses in Russia. So I spent a few years at Moscow State University, entirely different educational system. It's like the old days here. It's like, rah, rah, rah. What I mean? There was talk about push. I can understand why they have Olympic athletes in skating and gymnastics. I mean, really push. So, but at the same time, the greatest capability I've ever seen in my life in some of these countries in mathematics and algorithmic math and physics, incredible talent. And when you match that, that's the thing is when you match that with the operations expertise, your Harvard MBA, you take those kind of talents and start to put it together. That's a powerful combination because on one side, you got that technical expertise. On the other side, you have that international expertise. I just love it. And in Silicon Valley, it's like the bastion of that. It's like a melding pot of bringing. So on one side, you got sales and marketing. Another side, you got technical. Another side, you got operational expertise from all over the world. So it's incredible.
You need this complementary skill set. In any, the worst thing a technical founder does after getting funding, I saw the last interview you just did, is to find a salesperson just like him with analytical and actually they need a totally different person, right? So I understand the difficulty, but it has to be a very complementary team.
Yeah, I got to tell you this, Jin. So I'll never forget that. It was one of the most valuable lessons I've ever had in my life. I had this martial arts instructor, Grandmaster Ho Wai Kwan, and he just came off the boat from Korea. And so he doesn't understand liability and all those kind of issues. And so I was taking my black belt test. And this was an entirely different kind of black belt test when somebody doesn't understand liability the same way. I'll never forget it. He said to me, he held a 2-inch cinder block cap up and told me I needed to break it, like hold it with one hand. It's an entirely different deal if you put it on the ground, right? But when you hold something, it's a piece of wood's one thing, piece of pine is one thing, but a cinder block cap's an entirely different deal. And he said to me that I needed to break it, and he was so scary that I thought he may not understand liability enough that something bad could happen to me. I don't know what the. So I thought, I'm going to go through it. So I got back, I hit it, and I smashed through it and broke it. And he said, life is about thinking about being on the other side. I never forget it. And when he told me that, I understood that, the life is you visualize where you want to go, no matter what it is, and you put yourself in that position to do it. And that's what life's all about. And, that one lesson really transformed me. I started the martial arts of 13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
But that one lesson, it literally changed my life because I understood is, don't think about that it's a wall. Think about how you can get through it.
Yeah, and absolutely for the founders especially, getting that it's very lonely at the top, and you can have so much help from the VCs or your advisors. So your mental game and you're getting that balance, and it's essential to sustaining that company, right? So a lot of people just burn out because they can't handle that pressure, the volatility, and actually not everyone is made up for that environment.
Well, I mean, Jid, you've been through it a lot. You seem to thrive in it. It's like special people thrive in it.
I'm not an entrepreneur. I think I see some of my the CEOs and the volatility they go through, and I'm not. I don't like to take that kind of heat every day. To be honest, yeah.
I mean, I love it. To be honest with you, I love it. And so, I grew up in Pennsylvania on the side of a mountain, a 500-person village, and Mennonites and Amish were my neighbors. But I always wanted to try, and do something. And I remember one time, literally, I couldn't play tennis, Jin, at all. I watched it on TV, but, when I watched it, they didn't have like showing it time again. They would show it once and that was it. And I remember watching it. I went down to the tennis court in my area. My buddy and I practiced all summer. We didn't even know how to play. Literally. I knew, but the thing is, I learned a lesson is hit the ball and get it in between the lines. You win. That's the only thing that I know. I hit it in. Doesn't matter what kind of stroke you have, but you got to hit it in. So we hit it in. We became number 2 and 3 in the tennis team because we played so much. And it just, here you are. You didn't have all the finesse that everybody else did. We didn't have the money for the great lessons, but we understood how to win. And that's part of it. You got to want to win, whatever it is, and not in a bad way. And you got to want to build a team that wants to win with you. Create this incredible team that's got the spirit to go out. Let's go get it done. Let's do it together. Let's smash through it. Everybody wins. Everybody puts money in their pocket. I mean, Jim, this is the other thing too. I don't know about you. I see this. I see founders in some other countries that don't want to give up equity. They want to keep it themselves. Or I see workers that don't understand how important equity is. Do you see the same thing?
I think really we look for, in general, we come in at Series B. And so we would clear through that process, but
I got it.
It just shows lack of, to be fair, some companies went to become unicorns without getting venture rounds, right?
Yes.
So it is not a rule, but you need to have alignment, and the whole point of alignment is to have other people grow the pie with you, right? So if you're not willing to do that, but you definitely have to take on people who want to take that risk.
No, I understand. And growing the pie. And this is another thing that I learned a long time ago. is that having people that are smarter than you that work for you is a really good idea.
Absolutely. I mean, so it's you see, especially I've worked in large companies also, and you see that the organization stagnates because the management don't want to hire people who are better than they are because they want to look good. And this is why they can't sustain over the long term. They'll be disrupted. And as a startup, if you start doing that, even before you have client base, you're done.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree 100%. It's and then another thing is that fear. You quite eloquently talked about the fear. I remember I had lunch with Scott McNeely. I don't know if you ever from Sun Microsystems a couple of years ago, and many years before that, I heard him say at the Dutch Goose is that you'll learn the most when you go through something that you fear the most. So you will learn. And I remember when he said that to me, and I remember when I went over to Russia and we were doing startups, people said, "You're crazy. Why would you go over to Russia?" But you learn so much when you go into those areas. It's better to approach it with the curiosity of a child, right? And learn. So do you see that too? It's in terms of the cultures in Korea. How is it for the startups? Because I don't see that many Korean startups coming out to Silicon Valley. But what's happening there with this whole thing? Is the culture? Do they want to go global? Do they, where? How do they fit in?
Yeah, I think there's an element of one. There's an element of culture and language, and then the second is there's an element of how some of the business models are constrained in that. But despite all these negatives that I've just mentioned, I look at a lot of things in the blockchain space and in the AI space, and what's been happening is you have this new generation of entrepreneurs who are building distributed teams with the Russians, with the Brazilians, and building an organization that is distributed, that actually complements their skill set so they can actually scale globally and they have global ambitions. Because if your team is all like around you and they look like you and they do things like you, then you're kind of limited in your scope of looking at things, right? But I think what's changed with this remote work is the founders' willingness to experiment more with a broader team outside their scope initially.
Jen, I love it. We talk about decentralized, multicultural, and intergenerational, because the other thing is having some gray hair and experience of having done it a few times is not a bad thing these days.
Some of the best companies have a complementary skill set of like a very experienced domain expert or industry expert with a younger technology engineer, right? And that is a powerful combination, actually. If you look at research, that one generation gap makes a powerful synergy in terms of what they can do in terms of execution also.
I love that. If you get a chance, will you share that with me? Because I talk about it all the time. I feel it, and I'm the gray hair guy coming in to these.
You don't have much gray hair. It doesn't seem like.
Well, what can I say? Color doesn't hurt. But I guess that's because I have my younger Russian wife with me. She keeps me young. But that's part of it. You build these complementary teams. I know when on the Russian side, I found some incredible talent. In fact, Eva, my company, 80% plus of my employees are located in Russia in my development team because they're really, really good in AI. So we're coming up to the top of the hour, and I wanted to go down through, what do you see over the next year? We're going down through this, coming out of this pandemic. It seems like we've taken a corner. It's still a little rocky. What do you see we've come through a tough year where we couldn't meet, we couldn't really get out there. I think people have accepted the whole COVID, and now they're cutting deals. But what do you see over the next year in terms of startups, and particularly in going for B rounds of funding where you are? How do you see that over the next year and beyond?
I think COVID, or the structural changes that happened in the future of work or future of health, and actually how operating models work, has fundamentally changed. Not only how what investors are looking for, but business models that are coming out. And what I'm excited about is actually, because of COVID, it pulled forward what you call the Web3 experience. So up until a few years ago, we were digitizing in that Web2 concept, and now we're entering an age of Web3 where value is exchanged. There's much less information asymmetry also. And so if you're an entrepreneur looking back and see, what made money or what became a unicorn, and building on that infrastructure, even if it's even just basic cloud, it will not be fit for purpose for the new venture you're building, because it will be fundamentally changed in the next 5 years. And so there are periods in investments or in periods of startup building where you're riding that wave. That wave of digitization is continuing, but if you are on that path with the same platform, you're going to be on the wrong platform. So I think entrepreneurs have to be really mindful, and that's why you need feedback, because investors see a lot of different things pop up. And so just be mindful of what you're building, whether it was built for something that may be obsolete quite quickly, then you shouldn't be working on that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And what about, one thing about AI? Where do you see AI in terms of the Korean startups, in terms of the global market? Where do you see that over the next couple of years in terms of machine learning and deep learning? Not the BS we were talking about a few years ago. Oh, I've got AI, and you looked in it, and it's just some algorithmic math. But true machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, what do you see over the next couple of years?
I see quite a bit of actually between how the Chinese are working on things and how the Europeans and the Americans are working on things. In terms of application of AI, whether it be deep learning or machine vision, and the commercialization that comes out in terms of business models, I think Asia will be quite ahead on that, because the platforms are, we're going to a period where it's going to be more straddling the physical and the virtual world, and Asia has more of these O2O businesses, whereas the US or Europeans are still, they have very deep tech, but the infrastructure or the platforms that are running that are still, there's a lot of legacy, and so they can't just, and then there's also the consumer behavior is so entrenched, it will take a bit of more time, and so it will be interesting because you have a lot more deep tech in some of the areas in the West, but the actual usage, and it may be that some of the FANGs, they've been buying up a lot of these AI companies, start to experiment with more different user behavior in the emerging markets, because there is no entrenched behaviors.
Yeah, interesting. I like that, straddling the physical and virtual worlds. Jin, how do people get a hold of you? LinkedIn, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I put my Twitter account, and I'm happy to converse.
No, that's great. I want to thank you so much. As a kamsahamnida. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for taking time out of your busy schedule to join my show today. It's great to have you. I really appreciate it. I'd like to have you on again at some point in time.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much. My partner Derek is in Africa. He's going to be broadcasting next, so I got to jump off. But
Okay.
thank you very much, Jen. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and pleasure talking to you. Look forward to catching up again.
Same here. Thank you. My partner Derek is going to be joining us very shortly. He will be broadcasting live from Nigeria. So stay tuned. It's coming up very soon. And check out gsdvs.com for a link and join the show on StreamYard. He'll be up in about 7 minutes. So thank you very much. Have a great day. Thanks for joining the show, and see you again on Thursday. Take care. Bye-bye.